Listen,
Never in my life associated the word boring with baseball.
we know what's up.
Me? Yeah. Famous? Yeah.
And I'm like giddy over there smiling like, we're about to win this shit.
Did everyone give you crap? Give me a good host story.
I'm not picking it up.
We both love the game.
We talk about it every day.
Can't get enough baseball.
Having some popcorn, you're fooling around your phone.
I'd have to wait in line for 3 hours.
Hang on, because it's about to be a wild ride.
All right. There's no human being I'd rather be talking to right now than Paul Byrd. Fact.
What an honor. Thank you.
Fact. Oh, so good to see you. So good to hear from you. And Paul Byrd, of course, great major league pitcher, great broadcaster, great at a lot of things, great office, great backdrop for a podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, you got it all going on.
I tried hard. I got a little George Brett. Let me help you.
Yeah. I
got the Sandlot Phillies. This is a picture of me, Kansas City, with my 2 kids.
Oh, that's a great photo.
Live on a farm. Just had to put, unfortunately, my favorite horse down. That's his saddle. Means a lot to me. And then, then I got little things here, like a little Paul Byrd, Red Sox.
So is that the last, that nameplate? This will be a great segue, Paul. Is that nameplate from the last year, 2009?
It is. And then this is 2008. You can see how the game was changing and just kept getting better.
All right. Well,
let me tell you one thing before you start.
Yeah.
My favorite piece of memorabilia is a letter that I just bought last year, and it's from Jackie Robinson. And he's explaining to a lady who lives in the middle of nowhere, Canada. Looked up her house on Google. Still there. Why he plays on Sunday. She was upset that he was playing on Sunday and calling himself a Christian man, and how could he do that? And he so graciously answered her question and said, I don't believe going to church on Sunday makes you a Christian, but yet love and how you treat people and is what's important. And he said, it's probably not the answer you were looking for, but I thought I would write back to you and give you a little more insight on how I feel. Jackie Robinson. I mean, it was so gracious. And in that letter, you can see not only why he was chosen as the first, black man, because he could handle all of the craziness, but you could just see and feel the grace that he gave to people and how elegant he was. And the fact that he even responded back, he had so many requests. And he responded to so many, so it's my favorite piece.
Wow! How did you find it? How did you come across that?
So I have a friend, Kevin Keating. His book's in the Hall of Fame. He was collecting autographs as a little kid, so I just have always admired his collection. And I said I want to start and get something really cool. And we talked about people that I liked, and he said, "Well, Jackie Robinson." It's can't really get any higher as far as history. He's up there with Babe Ruth and all the legends. And so he said, no matter what you get from him, it'll always hold value. And so I looked and I found this lady had just died and her family was putting it up for sale. So I bought the whole lot. And so all this stuff came in the mail. Like there was another letter. He wrote back to the same lady twice. The other letter was in 55 when he explained or told her, hope we do their best. We'll try to do our best. And they won it all that year. But this is what's interesting. My buddy, who's the lead authenticator, Kevin Keating with PSA, looked at those and goes, that's Jackie. That's a kid in the clubhouse. That's his wife. That's Jackie. That's Jackie. Because he had so much fan mail.
Yeah.
He was trying to get back to everybody. That's the kind of person he was. That the ones that were just signed, not a personal letter. Nobody wrote personal letters for him, but some people would just sign something and send back like a program. And he could identify every one of them. And I thought that was just fantastic.
Did you ever, when you were a kid, like when I was a kid, I sent baseball cards to players to get signed.
Yeah.
Did you ever do that?
I didn't. No. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. We were basketball, bourbon, and horse racing. That's why Secretariat's right here. My dad used to take me to Churchill Downs to gamble. I'm like in the 5th grade, got $2 on Old Blue coming around the stretch, heart rate's through the roof. Those were great days, but we grew up following the Big Red Machine because they were the closest. So I was always a Johnny Bench fan, George Foster. I slept with George Foster, a bat that I got in 77 when he had that great year. It was a black bat called Black Beauty.
Yeah.
So we would go there once or twice a year, but it wasn't, nobody aspired really to get their autographs. Like we didn't run down to get autographs. They were almost untouchables. And I don't think card collecting or any of the autographs came in until later in the 80s. And of course, I was in high school and didn't make it to any games by then.
Well, now, honestly, Paul, and this, I wasn't going to go down this road, but it's really interesting to me. But now it's really autographs. Yeah, there's still autographs, but it's more selfies, right? I mean, it's more that's the autograph. And I think it's probably a better, obviously better because, autographs, a lot of times, guys, or you don't even know. I don't know if you had good cursive. No one even does cursive anymore, right? So I don't know if your autograph was solid or not, but
it's solid, man. I worked on it in grade school. It cost me B's and C's in math instead of A's. Because I was on the side, working on my autograph. Yeah, Johnny Bench is a beautiful one. Ted Williams, one of the best. And you see those guys, they took such great care in writing, their autographs. I was able to get Ted Williams' autograph for the first time at the White House in 91. They were honoring he and Joe DiMaggio. I also got DiMaggio's autograph, another fine autograph, because they were honoring the streaks. Ted Williams, 50 years since he hit over 400. DiMaggio, the 56-game hitting streak, got to meet President Bush. Let me tell you, meeting, DiMaggio and Ted Williams was, for me, more impressive than meeting the president. No disrespect to the country. But, those were some big-time heroes, and meeting Ted Williams, we had that turquoise choker on, man, shaking his hand. My hand disappeared. It was like meeting John Wayne. He was just a stud. And so it was a really powerful moment in my life I'll never forget, and one of my first really big autographs.
Well, that's awesome. And there's so many. You've lived such a great life and continue to, and great memories. And we just came across our paths cross in Boston, which is a couple good, memorable years. 2008, 2009. You were traded to the Red Sox in 2008. You were on the postseason roster for a team that really, Paul, like that, I think that Tito Francona said that was the best team. That was their best team. And everyone was just so banged up, at the end. You got to Game 7 in the Tampa Bay. But again, you made the postseason roster. But I do want to talk to you. What I want to talk to you about is 2009. And so the reason I was thinking of you was because Rich Hill, I don't know if you follow this at all. So Rich Hill is doing exactly what you did in 2009, which is you say, I want to spend time with my family. First half with the idea of coming back and playing at the stretch drive. You came back, signed with the Red Sox. Your first game back, and I looked it up, and I'm like, I remember that game. It was such an awesome day. August 30th. 2009, 6 innings, 3 hits, no runs, not too far off, probably Little League fields or whatever you were. But take me through that sort of venture or expedition you had in that year, 2009.
Yeah. So, to even go back, Terry Francona was the manager of the Phillies, that jersey right there, where I was claimed off waivers from the Braves. And my first game in the big leagues for the Phillies, they made a mistake in the paperwork. So they had to send me to Philly. They didn't know what to do. They got me, out of AAA. They thought I had a chance to make the bullpen the next year. They made a mistake in the paperwork. They had to send me to the big leagues. They didn't know what to do. So there was a game that Randy Johnson was starting on Monday. They're like, we're just going to start Byrd against that. We're going to lose anyways. Everything's going to be fine. So I beat him. I beat Randy Johnson. I throw a shutout. I get the game-winning hit. He hit my bat. I didn't really get the hit, but he hit my bat. We'll call it that. And little liner over shortstop. Mark Lewis scored. And this, when I went in to Terry's office that game, and this is my first meeting with Terry Francona. He told me, he's like, "Hey, go have fun." And I'm like, "Go have fun?" Like, it's apparent not a whole lot's expected, and probably rightfully so. And this game against Halliday had the same feel. Like, man, you've been throwing to little league kids. You've been throwing batting practice. You've only been throwing 60 feet, 6 inches for less than 2 weeks. You're facing Halliday. Just go try to eat some innings, see how long you can survive, whatever. And I was like, man, I'm here to win. We're in a playoff race. There's no guarantees. This is a very crucial, important game. And I don't care that it's Halliday. I mean, I want to win. And I love the fans in Boston because they just appreciate effort. You can't fool them. And to get a standing ovation, coming out or just whatever. I mean, that's just, I remember walking off the field and everybody knew, like, man, hey, you're probably done or whatever. But at that point, seeing the crowd rise and elevate was a very, very special memory for me. And beating Halliday, great pitcher, being undertrained. And Terry Francona met me in the dugout. He just goes, "Wow." And he goes, points at the scoreboard and he goes, "I mean, wow." And, gives me a big hug and everything like that. And that was it, and then at that point, the Josh Beckett's and the, Dustin Pedroia's and everybody coming over. And, it's a different kind of hug and giving knuckles in the dugout when you come in and help a team during a crucial playoff run.
So when you go through that year, just like Rich, you have this plan, and I think it was to coach your son's little league team, or wasn't it?
Well, yeah. My wife just said, like, no offense, like we're paid very well in the big leagues. Most never see any kind of good money. Only 4% of players drafted make it to the big leagues. Only 3% of those play longer than 3 years because of arbitration. So at that point, I had played 19 years between the minors and the big leagues, and at about 13, 14 in the big leagues. And my boys were getting older, and my wife just said, she's the reasoning sounding board, the wisdom in our family. And she said, "What's the point of money if you miss your kids grow up?" And I'd wanted to win a World Series. There's other things I wanted to do. I didn't need to throw hard to get guys out. No, I wasn't a number 1 or number 2 pitcher, but I could eat innings, and I wasn't going to panic in playoffs or things like that. And so I had a purpose for teams that were hurting in that area. And so that's why I spent time. I coached my kids. I threw everybody BP, and 12-year-olds are like, "Throw me a slider," and they have no chance, but they've seen a big league slider. So there's little things like that kids would go nuts. And I think there was a way that I stayed in shape, and I would long toss. And it's something I've been doing my whole life. So like Rich Hill, it's not like he's a rookie. Like all the mistakes and the little tweaks he needs to do to fine tune his changeup or curve, he is a good one. He's not going to need a lot of time to get that in shape, provided he's healthy.
Well, so when you have the plan and you're throwing to your 12-year-olds, which, by the way, this is lining up totally the same, right? He had 12-year-old.
Yeah.
He had coached his 12-year-old. They went up to Cooperstown for their tournament.
Yes, I did the same.
You did the same thing. Really?
Yeah, got back from Cooperstown. And what a magical place that is. Sorry to interrupt you, but exact same thing. As I was in Cooperstown, I was, they got some big pastures up there, and I was sneaking away long tossing.
Really? So when did you do a showcase for anybody, or did you have to?
No, I had some different teams that were interested. The Yankees were interested. The beginning of the year, Pittsburgh, the Dodgers, the Yankees were interested, and man, some good places. I mean, even Pittsburgh, that's not the Yankees, is a sleeper place to play.
Yeah.
Everybody loves Pittsburgh. Great people in that town, great size, great park, good pitchers park. There's just a lot of good offers. So at the end, the Red Sox and the Yankees were both interested. and ended up choosing the Red Sox. I love Terry the Town.
Yeah, well, that was the
Familiar with
thing,
it.
right? You had that connection, right, with Frank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not just Francona, but with, I played for Theo the year before.
Yeah, that's right.
I knew that clubhouse. I liked that field. I liked the fans. I liked the food. And the same thing with the Yankees. Fenway Park, Tuesday, you're playing Toronto. Might as well be in the playoffs. People are going nuts. It's sold out. They're into it. When you, at that time, because I'd played in Boston before, and it was, once they started winning in the early 2000s, the next thing you know, every game feels like the playoffs. It's a great place to be.
So when you sign and now you ramp up, I don't know how many minor league rehab assignments did you do? Did you do? I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah. Funny story. I'd been, I'm outside of Atlanta, Georgia. I mean, it's nicknamed Hot Atlanta. It gets hot down here.
Yeah.
So, I'm throwing to my kids and it's hot. I mean, but that's the thing. I played in Kansas City where it's very, very hot. Midwest is crazy hot this summer. You got to get out in it, man. So they send me down to Fort Myers and they're like, all these young guys are like, man, who's this old guy? Like, he's not going to make it in the heat. Like, have the ambulance ready, And so I go out and I'm pitching. I'm like, give me 3 innings just to start, and they're 18, 19-year-olds, they haven't seen a good slider. I'm carving them up. They start bunting, like, let's see if grandpa can field the bunt. I'm going over, man. I'm sweating bullets. I'm throwing off my back leg, firing sidearm, nailing them at first. And coaches are like, look at this guy. This guy's almost 40 years old. That's how you field the bunt. They're using me as examples, all these 18-year-olds. And, man, I'm sweating bullets. It's 105 degrees down in Fort Myers. But I was ready. I'd been training in Atlanta. I was ready. Like, the heat meant nothing. And so they're like, hey, man, we're just going to rush you. If you're ready, great. If not, you just go back home. So you're going to go to AAA. I went to AAA and went like, I don't remember exactly, but I went like 5 innings, 7 innings, and then big leagues.
That's it. Yeah.
That was all I needed. And they didn't need 9 innings. I was like, hey, I'll give you 5 or 6 and you've seen my act. So it's not like, you're not going to be familiar with me if I'm off, or you're going to be, panicking if I'm throwing 85. So that doesn't mean that I'm not ready. That's just what I throw, and all's well.
Well, that's the thing. So now you get in the game, and this is sort of Rich hasn't, as we're taping here, Rich is called up, but he hasn't pitched yet. But still, he spent 2 innings, AAA, but he carved him up, right? Throwing 87.
Yeah.
And when you get in the game, as you showed on that day in 2009, it is the epitome of, if I know how to get major league hitters out, like, that's what it is. I know how to do it. And that's what you did. I mean, I think it's the same.
It's the same thing. But that's one of the reasons, and I didn't understand this when I was a rookie. There's advantages to, rookies and guys. Think of it like a car. There's advantage to driving a car that only has 20,000 miles on it. There's disadvantages of driving a car that has 300,000 miles on it. So if your arm has 300,000 miles on it, there's disadvantages to that. But the advantage to being older is, when you're a rookie, you may not have a good feel for, I'll say, your changeup. And it may take you 2 months to figure out what you're doing wrong or how to get back in the groove. Whereas a veteran, it may take him 2 pitches. So Rich Hill doesn't need time to figure it out. It's more of a physical, how's his arm? You're not producing as much testosterone. They may take you longer to recover. You may not be able to throw as long a bullpen, but that's okay. I had the privilege of playing with some great pitchers in my life. One of them was Greg Maddux, who never threw a bullpen.
Really?
Like he threw 10 pitches against the center field wall. Not a catcher.
Wow.
He turned around in batting practice and he threw 10 pitches against the center field wall. And he said, okay, I'm good.
Wow. Wow.
You know, I've got a picture here. It's not behind me, but it's of Johnny Sane and Warren Spahn. And there was a phrase, you know, Spawn and Sane and pray for rain because everybody else in their staff wasn't that good.
Yeah.
So cool. They both signed it. And Johnny Sane underneath it in quotes says, pray for rain. It's awesome. It's an awesome piece. But Johnny Sane was a pitching coach who mentored Leo Mazzoni. And Johnny Sane has the most 20-game winners in all of history as a pitching coach. And his philosophy was different, which is, we're going to throw our bullpens at 40, 50%. Just nice and easy. Just a game of catch. But once you get on the decline of a mound, it taxes the back of your shoulder more than if you throw on flat ground. So Glavine, another Hall of Famer, changed that and threw touch and feel on flat ground in the in the right field corner during batting practice. Smoltz liked to get on the mound. What I learned from that very good staff was everybody's different. Maddox needs 10 pitches to get ready. Throws against the wall. He doesn't even need anybody. Glavine, it's painfully slow to watch. It's like he's just not even trying. It's just working on his mechanics, just fine-tuning that. And then Smoltz wants to get on the mound. Well, there's no wrong or right, but there was wisdom in what Johnny Sane taught, which was, let's fine-tune our mechanics, our arm, without taxing it. And I think that's, if I were to give a critique, I'm not against new school baseball. I love the game. I love your podcast. Baseball truly is not boring. But if I had a critique for the younger guys, it would be know when to air it out and know when to just work on your craft without expending so much on that motor of your car that you want to preserve.
So that's a perfect segue. First of all, what was your fastball like that day? Do you remember? Was it?
It was mid to upper 80s.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I wasn't like blowing heat. There's times where I'm like, ooh, I got a good one tonight, which means 90, 91. Right. I'll be touching 92. But most of the time, I threw upper to mid 80s.
But you knew when you got going, you're like, okay, it's going to be okay, right? Like then. Yeah. And I found out, Rob, middle of my career, I found out it's really true. It's really true. Location is more important than velocity. People say that and preach that, but they don't believe it, because what you do is what you believe. Yeah.
And if you're out there in the middle and you got second and third and there's one out and you're up by one and it's the seventh inning, you got to get this guy out. I'm going to see what you believe, not by what you tell me with your mouth, but by what you do. And if you start hyperventilating and overthrowing and throwing everything as hard as you can, you just told me that you believe velocity is the number one most important thing about pitching. That was me early in my career. Later in my career, I learned to, in those big moments, relax and just hit my spot. That's it. That's it. And you will still throw hard. I promise. Your adrenaline's going to be up and it's going to be there, but it'll be in a much better location. And that's what makes it really hard to hit, is when the pitchers locate.
So I really appreciate your time, Paul. The last thing is, it sort of morphs with what we're talking about. Been asking a lot of guys in the podcast about their take on the cause of so many injuries in pitching. And I've gotten a ton of answers, all of them good, all of them thought provoking. For you, what is it? Like, what is it maybe it's exactly what you're talking about. The guys are just trying to throw too hard. I don't know.
No. So Dr. Andrews, I'll just go with, science. Dr. Andrews did a study years ago. And if you threw over 100 innings before your 17th birthday, you were 3 times more likely to need major surgery as a pitcher. And he actually found that throwing a curveball early was not detrimental to the arm, provided you threw it correctly. And that's, something that's important for a young pitcher. But overuse was the problem. And you have to throw to build arm strength to build that up. But the problem is overuse. And then the harder you throw, it's just a fact, the more chance that you will hurt your arm. I'll just talk about one surgery versus I've had 2 shoulder surgeries and I've had 3 elbow. But as a Tommy John scar, what I learned when I had my Tommy John was that you don't stress the ulnar collateral ligament, which holds your elbow together. When you release a baseball, it keeps this together. You don't use that till you throw over 82. So only common sense for me would tell me, well, then the harder I throw that, the more I will need that or more that I will use that. To quote Dr. Chandler, a great doctor here in Atlanta, he says, when I die, my first question to God will be, why didn't you give us stronger Tommy John ligaments? Why didn't you give us stronger UCLs? I'm like, what a great question. You're probably the only guy that's going to ask him that. But we're designed to throw the ball underhanded, and that's why you can throw all day long down there. So I think the harder you throw, people are like, oh, guys aren't throwing harder now. The gun's off. I'm in the dugout. Guys are throwing harder. Guys are bigger and stronger. Maybe it's not 5 miles an hour, but it's a few. So when I played mid 2000s, average velocity for a starter was like 88, 89. I think it was 88.7. Now it's like 93.4. So that's a big jump in the history of the game. Within 10 to 15 years is when that number changed. Well, what happened? Is it the guns? Is it people, I think they trained more. I think they started doing arm exercises more, which is a good thing. But with that comes higher velocity, and with that comes, more injuries. So, if you drive a Maserati 150, probably going to break down more than that Ford truck that you're driving 65 down the interstate. My opinion. I like the Maserati. Don't get me wrong. If I can throw 95, 104, I'm going to do it. But I just know that it's going to come with the risk of injury. And so I want to make sure that I'm training hard. I'm doing my exercises, my jobs, so that my decelerator muscles can handle that. I don't want to overthrow. Daisuke Matsusaka, one of the members of the Braves, called the Monster in Japan. That was his nickname because he just threw and threw and threw. And he was one of the few Japanese pitchers that could carry that weight load. Nolan Ryan. There's some anomalies out there. But in general, the harder you throw, you want to make sure you get your rest, you eat properly, you train, you do all of those things because your arm is going to be taxed more. Last thing, young kids, teenagers, high schoolers, young men. If you have Tommy John, it lasts 7 years on average. So I coach and I see a lot of parents, high school, my son needs to have Tommy John so he can throw harder. No, he doesn't, because once you hit Tommy John, you start that time clock. And you want to hold out as long as you can. And a lot of people believe the reason they throw harder after Tommy John is actually not because of the ligament, but because for the first time in their life, they train really hard with all of these exercises and physical therapy, something they may not have done or paid attention to with great detail. Once you go to a physical therapy clinic, there's somebody standing there. You have to do all your exercises. You have to do all of that. Next thing you know, you're throwing harder. They think it's a Tommy John. It's not. So I would hold off as long as you can, and it's not a magical surgery. The training, eating right, getting your rest, proper mechanics is. Man, Rob, that's a long answer.
No,
you got to be careful when you ask me questions.
No, man, you nailed it. You nailed it. It's honestly, you nailed it. And I want to do a compilation at the end of this year of all the different, like Kenley Jansen cited the pitch clock. I mean, there's all of these different, there's all these different things. But I think that you hit the nail on the head. I think that's sort of the consensus. So, but Paul, man, this has been a highlight for me. It's so good seeing you. So good hearing from you. And and t-shirts are on the way. So I appreciate it.
Rob, keep up the great work, man. Love the hat, your broadcast. Keep it going, man. Baseball truly is not boring. It's a blast to watch and learn. And here I am, 53 years old now, still learning. Awesome. It's great.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul.